Hey everyone, this is Javi, and I am the Bowtie Psychic. Thank you so much for watching. I just want to let you know that I missed you so much. How are you? It's been so long since I've done an episode. There has been a lot going on, to be honest with you. For one, I just had top surgery, so I was recovering for the first part of November, and then when I was ready to do an episode, my computer cord died on me, so I had to get another one. But it's been so long since I've done an episode, and it's going to be a very exciting episode, I think. And not only that, but there's a lot in store for next year as well. So I'm very excited about it. There's going to be a lot of stuff. So I just want to let you know that this will be the last time I will go for long stretches of time without doing an episode, because that's completely ridiculous. So thank you so much for being patient, and thank you so much for watching or listening. That's another thing too. That's another thing. I am no longer on Libsyn, but I am now on Anchor. So I'm going to be showing up on a lot of platforms besides Spotify. So I just got notification that I am on Pocket Cast. So I'll be putting that on the art banner, so at least a link anyway, so you'll be able to listen to it if you so choose. So what else happened? Yes, I was also led by spirit to go outside during the healing process, because what's been happening is that I've been staying indoors a lot, and I have been getting depressed, so I was told to go outside and enjoy the weather. It is not snowing. It's not even that cold out right now, even though I'm in Rochester. And on top of that, I was told to be around a lot of people. So that's what I have been doing, been hanging out with people, and being part of their lives and them being part of mine. So it was something that was really needed for my mental health. So that's what's been going on. That's exactly what's been going on. So on that note, let's get started with today's episode. But before I get started, let's take some deep breaths so I can ask Spirit and my spirit team to come through. And inhale through your nose, out through your mouth. I hope a lot of y'all were meditating, because that's another way to, especially if you're doing political work, it's another way to not only realize, but to tap into spirit and to get your mind clear, to meditate, so you can be into yourself, be connected with your spirit, be connected with self, so you can get those messages. So you get those messages from spirit. You connect with your spirit guides, so they can help you politically and spiritually and personally, because there's so much going on. Even if you want to check out for a minute, meditation is very good with that, good for that. Dear High Spirit, I pray that you use me as a vessel. Whatever comes through comes from you, the highest and best of my guardians, ancestors, wise ones, guardian angels, archangels, ascended masters. Whatever comes through for today's episode, it comes from a place of light and love and is rooted in truth. And I pray this episode helps those that resonates with those who are listening or watching. Keep the light of protection around all of us. Okay. So for this episode, I definitely want to talk about writing your own narrative. Okay, when it comes to the authentic self. The reason why I came up, well, Spirit and I came up with this episode in this topic rather. And the reason being is that there are still a lot of us who are not being our authentic selves, or are afraid of being ourselves. Okay. A lot of us there's still a number of us who are afraid for whatever reason. And a lot of us fear judgment because we live in a society that encourages us to put on a mask, if not a full costume altogether. We put on this costume for our safety. We put on this costume because this costume would benefit us, if we were to want a job or to live in a society that we feel doesn't accept us or doesn't accept us in general. You know, we put on this costume because it would guarantee us housing. It would guarantee us employment. It would guarantee us, safety. It would guarantee us the love of from a parent who would never accept us otherwise. And we keep wearing this costume until it becomes a second skin. And then all of a sudden we forget who we really are. And we wear this and we get lost in the part that we're playing. We forget who we really are as people. We forget who we really are as far as our identity. And when I say our identity, I mean the LGBTIQA community. And it happens to a lot of us for a variety of reasons. The reasons, some of those reasons I actually stated, you know what I mean? So don't get me wrong. Do not get me wrong. Those are legitimate reasons. Those are very legitimate reasons to be afraid, especially if you're living in a part of the world where you are going to be persecuted if you were to be out like Jamaica or Chechnya in Brazil, in a lot of places, even here in the United States, where in some way, shape, or form you are going to be persecuted on a regular basis because of who you are. In some of these places, you're going to be killed. Everywhere around the world, there are a lot of places where we are not safe to be who we are. So we wear that mask. We wear that costume. And it keeps us safe. Okay. And not only does it keep us safe, but there are in some incidences where people are very aware of who they are, but they're in the closet and they fit in so well that they spew a lot of anti-gay and lesbian, anti-trans rhetoric, push initiatives, political initiative bills to silence us or to kill us or to make sure that we don't have the resources needed. And then a scandal comes out, a newspaper article comes out of that same politician, about that same politician who is basically with someone of the same sex. And then they have to resign or, they have to explain themselves. So that's an extreme, but it happens. But it's all because of the mask that was created by white supremacist Christian ideology. It created this fear that we are to have, a lot of us, in order for us to be in the closet and be afraid of that closet. Okay. I know that the holiday season is coming up as well. And so there are a lot of folks who are struggling around the holidays, because they may not be out or they are out. And it is a very stressful time for a lot of us, in the GLBTIQA community. Um, and I'm putting that out there because that's when the costume is in full force. If we're not in the closet, or we know who we are, but for our safety or for sanity's sake, we play the role, we play the part. Okay. Um, but there are those in the world who are in a safe environment, surrounded by friends and family of their choosing, resources, and the resources are there, the resources are provided to them, and yet they're still afraid. They're still afraid. That fear is still there, even in an environment that is that is safe for them. Okay. And that fear comes out in many ways. It comes out, through internalized bigotry, just like an example were the politicians I was talking about. Envy of those who are out, anger, not danger, anger, depression, anxiety, and in most cases suicide, because they feel like they can't live in this lie or with this lie anymore. And it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate, because this fear is unnecessary, especially, for those who are in an affirming support system. In fact, studies have shown that if someone is in a supportive household or a supportive environment, they're more likely to thrive if they were to come out. Okay. So to be in the closet in a very affirming space is very unfortunate. Just simply because there has been proof of, especially if there's been proof around you that, you're going to be loved, you're going to be safe, and you're going to be affirmed. Your identity and you yourself are going to be affirmed regardless. So I say all that because there was a time when I was afraid to come out. I was afraid because I didn't act a certain way or look a certain way. I did not grow up with gender nonconforming people. I did not grow up with agender transmasculine individuals. I didn't even know what a trans person was until I moved here to Rochester. So when I moved here to Rochester, and I surrounded myself with those who were gender nonconforming, there was a part of me that felt like I wanted to be like them. It wasn't like an envy, but I just felt like I wanted to be like them. I wanted to be like them. But I'm not, because I'm not this, I'm not that. I don't have this aesthetic and that aesthetic. There's a certain way they act. I don't do that, because when you see trans people, when you think of trans people, you think of those who have completely transitioned. They pass. You know what I mean? I did not pass. I don't think I would have passed as a cis person, or there were certain things that about my old self that I still enjoy having and enjoy being. And I did not want to throw that away. So I just felt like there is no way that I can be trans because I'm not this way. And it took being around gender nonconforming people, and it took being around someone who was trans, but very much into their femininity, to realize that there is no one way to be something. There's no one way of being trans. There's no one way of being gay. There's no one way of being whatever. There's no one way of being that. And when I realized that, I was able to be myself. I was able to be me. I was able to come out and slowly but surely enjoy both my masculine and feminine energy. But I would not have been able to do that had I not had um, an affirming, solid environment here in Rochester that consisted of gender nonconforming people and different types of trans people. Okay. I felt like in order for me to be a whole trans person, I had to like get like completely transformed. When in actuality, there are parts of my body that I still enjoy. You know, I did not have bottom dysphoria. I still don't have bottom dysphoria. I have, I had, I had um, top dysphoria, and now I feel and look like the person that I've always wanted to be. Okay, because I can't get like a, well, as far as bottom surgery, TMI, as far as bottom surgery, I can always get a prosthetic. That's not a problem at all. You know, and part of me, I'm not gonna lie, I love what I have down there. So I'm not going to change anything about it. And even if and to be honest with you, being trans doesn't necessarily mean you have to have surgery. There are many folks who are trans and don't even want surgeries. So that's not the case. I'm talking about my own self. But long story, to get back to what we were saying, I would not have known any of that about myself if I did not have a supportive system, if I did not have an environment where I can completely have the freedom to come to those conclusions. And so that's where I am with that as far as being me. And on top of that, and most importantly, I wouldn't be where I am if I did not have my spirituality, if I were not removing those energetic blocks and getting help, doing that from, working with my spirit guides and working with my spiritual mentors here on earth. You know what I mean? I would not be able to, tear away those Christian ideologies, and those fears of being judged due to my gender identity, and tearing all that stuff apart and ripping it apart. I would not be able to be sitting here if it were not for my spirituality. And I say all that because a lot of us queer and trans people come from Christian households or households that were not affirming. They're very domineering and very toxic and very dangerous for us. And there's some of us who still live in those environments. And as a result of that, we walk away from spirituality. We walk away from religion, but we basically turn a whole blind eye to it and say, like, this is not for us. This is not, I don't want to be around anything that tells me that I am not good enough or that I am that I am an abomination. And as a result, we just shut everything down as far as spirituality. And so one of the reasons why I'm doing this podcast, or one of the reasons why I'm doing this episode, is to demonstrate that spirituality helped me come out. Spirituality helped me pull back a lot of layers regarding distrust of a higher being, a distrust of spirit guides, distrust of spirit, distrust of anything pertaining to the to the divine. And I'm not talking about the Christian church. I'm not talking about the white Jesus. I'm not talking about any of that. I'm talking about the divine. And because there's one way, there's more than one way um, to connect with spirit without having this feeling of being a complete and utter abomination. And that's the thing, though, like no God, the real spirit, the real entity, that real entity would never see that or ever think that about us. We're actually closer to God because of our gender identity. Okay. That's what God wanted us to be anyway. That's why we have both um, of feminine and masculine energy. We're supposed to be both. We're supposed to have both. We're supposed to be free and be who we are. A lot of what we know as far as religion as man-made, that has nothing to do with God. It has nothing to do with spirituality. That has nothing to do with spirit or your spirit guides or people who are in your life from watching you from the spirit realm. It has nothing to do with that. So I say all that because we can use spirituality to help us rip off that costume, and to ask spirit what to do next. Once we do, how to do it, where to go to do it. We're not by ourselves at all. Spirit is there with us. Spirit is always with us. We just have to tap into that. That's why I'm always saying meditate in order to tap into spirit, because not only are you able to rip off that costume, with spirit's help or the help of your spirit guides. On a political scale, when you're able to be yourself, you do your best work. When you're able to be yourself, you're able to politically be influential, because you'll be able to use your story as a beacon of hope for those who have not, for one, been where you are, or as far as being able to come out of the closet without spirit. You know what I mean? Or or you'll be able to be influential for people who are struggling to find out who they are, and struggling with, to find out where they are, as far as their story, their journey. They can listen to your story, when you're out there telling it, at a rally or at on a platform where, you'll be able, to fight for the rights and the resources for queer and trans people, and they will hear your story and hear theirs. That is why we are to rip off the costume. That is one of the reasons why spirit can actually help us with that, because when we're spirit led, we're able to be influential to the point where we can not only give people hope, but we can give them a reason to fight. We give them a reason to fight and a reason to hold on. And we can be a beacon of support for them. We can be a support system for them. That's another reason why we're out. There's another reason why we are brave enough to come out of the closet. This is a dangerous game. Being out of the closet and being your authentic self on a regular basis is a dangerous game. However, when we are doing this, with the hopes that someone else will be influenced by our story, influenced by our very presence and our very power, we're literally giving them a reason to keep going. We're literally giving them a reason to keep going. Okay, my light shines as a political activist, a spiritual activist, and a trans person in general because of spirit, because of my spirit guides. And the confidence I have in myself was non-existent before I let spirit into my life. And the moment I started doing the work, and the moment I started realizing what my purpose was in this world, my light started to shine, and nothing can stop me other than myself. You know what I mean? Because self-sabotage is also real, and that's another episode that we can actually do, because it's very prominent in the spiritual world. It's very prominent in the political arena as well, as far as self-sabotage. And so, in other words, spirituality can be like a tool for us to use to empower ourselves, and for us to empower others. Okay, but in order for us to be empowered, we have to have the bravery to pull off that costume, to use spirituality to pull off that costume, and to realize that we're not alone in the process. We're not alone. Okay, the resources are out there. The support is out there. Regardless of how bleak everything looks right now, you are not alone. Spirit's with you, and there are other folks in this world who are with you, whether you are to connect with them via the internet or connect with them personally. You're never alone in this process of coming out. You're never alone in this process of finding support. You're never alone. You're never alone. And those who are out in the closet and living, or not, or out of the closet rather, and living their best life, I'm really proud of us. I'm proud of us. I'm proud of you. Because like I said before, we're closer to God, and we are not only closer to God, but we are using our lives, and we're using everything that we are to prove that nothing can stop us. This world can't stop us. The political arena the political regime that we're living under, living with, can't stop us. It can't stop us at all. They try, but it's not going to work. They try, but there are those who are fighting. Okay. There are so many of us that are fighting right now. So when you are open to it, spiritually, we become powerful. We become powerful spiritually. But you have to be open to it. And we are to not let the past, as far as like our Christian background or Baptist background, Catholic, wherever, we are not to allow that to take us from, or separate us from spirit, from our spirit guides, and that connection, that divine connection that we have. Because it will do us good. It will serve us good. It will serve us. And it will help us do better as people. It will help us politically. It will help us socially. It will help us personally. And it will actually help us, grapple with a lot of issues that we have, such as sexual abuse and emotional manipulation, and getting over those hurdles so we can begin to explore our lives and explore ourselves without fear. That's what it's about, as far as taking off that mask and taking off that costume. Once we do it, our possibilities are very much endless. And for some of us, a lot of us, the fight is still there. Okay, and there is going to be a long haul, but it's not to the point where you feel as if you have to live in a costume or live a lie anymore. You don't have to do it anymore. Just ask Spirit for guidance, because we are manifestors. We're manifestors of our experience. We're manifestors of our lives. We have the power to change that. And can you imagine using the power of manifestation, using your own power to fight politically, to rip off the mask that tells us that we are to be somebody we're not, to get rid of the notion that we have to be somebody we're not, to change the society that tells us that there's only two genders and we are to be a certain way because of those genders. We have the power to change that, but we have to take off the mask in order to do it, and we are to do that. We are to do that with the help of spirit. That has been my experience, and I'm telling you that it could be yours as well. And on that note, here's the assignment for this week. Honor those who are in the closet. Honor those who are in the closet. Share a video about your experiences. Answer the question from a youth who may be struggling with their gender, the gender expression or sexual orientation, whatever that looks like. Support someone who is in the closet. Support someone who you suspect, not even suspect, but you sense that they want to have that conversation. Okay. And I would love to see the results in the comments. I would love to see what you, if you so choose, you can put those in the comments, or you can share them privately if you so choose, by emailing me, bowtiepsychic@gmail.com. So I would love to hear what you have to say. And on that note, we're going to take a break before we do the spirit message. So see you soon. And welcome back. For those who are just tuning in, I am Javi, and this is the Bowtie Psychic. Before we even get started with the general reading, I just want to, again, thank you so much for listening to the podcast and subscribing to the YouTube channel. I really appreciate you. I really appreciate the support. I really appreciate your patience, because, like I said, it's been a long time since I've done an episode, and I don't want to go through that again as far as it being like long stretches of time. So thank you so much. And thank you to my subscribers. Y'all are the reason why I do this. You're the reason why I continue to serve. So, and do this podcast. So thank you so much for sticking with me. And I will be doing a lot more. I want to let you know too that I've come up with a lot of ideas as far as the podcast. I want to start doing live readings, and just to give you an idea of what I was thinking, like doing live readings and doing a book review every once in a while, reading books based on, magic and spirituality and politics and so on and so forth, and a lot of social commentary in those books as well. So there's a couple of ideas that me and Spirit have come up with. And of course, having guests every once in a while, and continuing to be on different podcast platforms. I know that I just joined. I joined Anchor. Anchor it distributes podcasts, at least the audio anyway. It helps you record. You can upload, edits, all kinds of stuff. It's like considered a one-stop shop. So there's a lot of changes for the podcast because of Anchor alone. So I am very excited about what's going on. The new year is going to be, it's going to be really good. Also, did I tell you that I was on Instagram? So the Bowtie Psychic is also on Instagram. I'm going to be making changes to that page as well. It's going to go through a whole overhaul. So there's going to be weekly readings and a lot more interaction with folks as well. So I do plan on being more active on that channel. So again, a lot of stuff is going on, with the Bowtie Psychic. Just another way for me to serve. It's also another way for me to get the word out that it's out here, and I'm doing all I can to basically spread the message, about spirituality and politics and self-care, and how to use those tools, the tools of meditation, and clairaudience, or all the clairs, as far as like clairaudience, clairsentience, all that, to not only empower yourself, but to also use those tools, to empower yourself politically, to use, those political, they'll use those tools politically to demonstrate how to pick and choose your battles. Um, because not what I'm learning too is that not everything, is to have my opinion. Not everything is to have my stamp of approval, so on and so forth. Um, or not so on and so forth, but lack of better terms is what I meant to say. So that's a lot that Spirit has given me, and so I am very excited to, demonstrate all that for you when the time comes. But one thing at a time, right? So again, let's get started with the general spirit reading, and I would like to start off with a short prayer. Your higher spirit, I pray you use me as a vessel. Whatever comes through, it comes from you. Highest and best of my guardians, ancestors, wise ones, guardian angels, archangels, ascended masters. I pray that whatever comes through is from you, and it comes from a place of light and love and is rooted in truth. I pray that the white light of protection is placed around me and the viewers. Okay. So a few cards fell out. I was also told to keep shuffling. All right. So the first card that came up is the Seven of Fire. The Seven of Fire. For those who are listening to the podcast, there's a woman with red hair, and her third eye is a butterfly, and she has a snake around her wrist, and she is around a flower. There's two cats. They're both like a fiery orange, and there's a lotus. She is sitting or standing next to standing over a bowl, and it has a lotus in the middle of it. What I'm getting from this card is that it's time to fight fire with fire. It is time to amp up our ammunition and to amp up our trust within one another so we can fight. Know our inner strength and know our inner convictions. A lot of us are a lot of us are fighting, and a lot of us are doing the work. But what I'm getting is that we have to be compassionate towards one another. I'm talking about one another as far as the GLBTIQA community. There's a lot of division within our community right now, and what's going on with that division is that we're fighting amongst each other about identity. Who is more viable? Who is more of what? Who is authentic? Who isn't? Who's real? Who's not? That stuff is causing so much division that is keeping us from the real fight. And the real fight is the real enemy is the system. Our real enemy are those who are trying to take away our resources. We are not to sit here and do a lot of infighting about who is real and who is fake. And for one, there's no such thing as that. What that card is also saying is that we have to find our inner strength. We have to pick and choose our battles. We are to settle down, okay? We are to settle down and know our full strength. A lot of us don't know our full strength. A lot of us are still trying to figure out what we are here on this earth for. A lot of us are still trying to figure out, what am I doing here? There's strength in numbers. There's strength in numbers. We are to come together as a unit. We are to come together as a collective to demonstrate our strength and to demonstrate our ability, our ability to come together and fight for what we believe in. I'm getting no more infighting. No more infighting. Because it's unnecessary. I also got the three of fire. All these action cards. For those who are listening to the podcast, the audio version, it's a young man with fiery red hair. There's a mountain behind him. He's wearing all orange, and orange is an action color. And he has a stick with a bag on the end of it, like he's running away or he's walking away or going through a journey. I'm getting quit running away from spirit. Quit running away from spirit. Quit running away. Because that's not what we're here for. We are to use our spiritual connection. We are to use our spiritual connection to find peace within ourselves, to gather our strength, and to demonstrate our inner peace. One of the reasons why the world gets to us so quickly is because we are waiting for the world to accept us. We are waiting for the world to accept us to the point where we are safe and we're not in danger anymore. The truth of the matter is, because we are different, because we are who we are, safety has to come from us. Safety has to come from our community, members of our community. That's one of the reasons why we have to come together, that we are being called to come together. That's why that card is saying there's strength in numbers. The reason why there's strength in numbers is because if we learn to take care of each other, if we begin to take care of each other and leave all this other infighting of who's real in the community, who's fake in the community, who's real, who's really trans versus who's really not, which is some craziness, we are able to outmaneuver. We'll be able to use spirit and to use our strength in numbers to outmaneuver our enemy and to outmaneuver and to outsmart those who are constantly working against us and working towards taking our resources and working towards taking from us. Okay. They can only take so much. We have to start fighting in a whole nother way, in a different way, a smarter way. And one of those ways is to come through um, and to use numbers and to use um, groups to make them struggle, basically, to make them struggle to get us. Because what I'm getting is that when we come together as a unit, and I'm talking about the LGBTQIA community, when we come together as a unit, and now that I think about it, it's not just this reading is for the trans community in particular. In particular, that's what the Spirit is telling me, that this is for us in particular. We come together and stop wanting society to accept us, and we start accepting ourselves, we start accepting the way Spirit sees us, and we start to dismantle all that stuff that we've heard, Spirit say, quote unquote, say to us, when in actuality, Spirit actually cares about loves us unconditionally and cares about our well-being. When we're able to do that work, we'll be able to see Spirit for who we are. We'll be able to see our own strength, and we'll be able to trust in Spirit. And when we're able to trust in Spirit and what Spirit and our spirit guides tell us, we can literally come up with ways to use our inner abilities to basically tap into so much knowledge and so much wisdom about what we can do as a community to protect ourselves by helping each other. Because society in general is not going to help us. Society already is not going to accept us. There's been proof of that. Stop begging. We are to stop begging for approval. We are to stop begging for approval. Get it from ourselves. We are to get that approval from ourselves. We are to get that approval from the community. Once we become a collective and once we become a strong collective, we're able to become more affirming towards one another. I'm shuffling more cards here. Oh, wow. Okay. Okay. So I got the Two of Earth upside down. And this person in the card, she is a woman with brown hair. She has a leaf crown on her head. It's like with horns coming up from either side. There's a third eye above it, and she's holding eggs. She's wearing a leaf dress. She's very pretty. She's very pretty. Basically, what this card upside down is saying is that a lot of us are not firmly grounded. A lot of us are not firmly grounded. We're allowing ourselves to be distracted by things we cannot change. People we cannot change. Situations we cannot change. Institutions that are out to dismantle us and pretty much destroy who we are as people. We're being easily distracted by these folks, or we're being easily distracted by outside issues that have nothing to do with what we're struggling with. We're letting anger and envy get to us. We're letting passing privilege get to us. We're letting like that whole thing with passing privilege. It comes from the society, that very society that doesn't really care about us like that. And unfortunately, there's a lot of trans people who fed into that narrative that they are somewhat better because they pass as cis people. That's a distraction. It's a real concern because it keeps us divided. It's a real concern because it literally feeds into misogyny. It feeds into misogyny. It definitely feeds into this higher or um, this patriarchal view of what people are supposed to look like, trans people are supposed to look like. We are to stop that because it's a distraction. That's a plant. That's a seed that was planted in the minds of a lot of trans people. This our society, our patriarchal society, our misogynistic society, planted that into our minds, and that actually stems from white supremacy. To be honest with you, because in order for you to be accepted, you have to had to adhere to this European concept of beauty, and that hit the trans community really hard. And so there's a lot of us who feel that in order for us to be accepted, you have to pass as cis. That's a lie, and it's a distraction. It's an illusion. You do not have to pass as anything in order to be accepted. So what that card is basically saying is that we need to stop being distracted by these lies that were not even invented by us as a collective. I'm talking about the trans community. That was not that whole concept of passing, that whole concept of being better than because you look a certain way, act a certain way, dress a certain way. We have to stop feeding into that because we did not invent that. That comes from white supremacy. That comes from the Europeanized concept of beauty that has poisoned not only our community, but the Black community and the non-Black POC communities around the globe. This is one of the reasons why we are not a collective, an effective collective, a loving, harmonious collective, because we are letting those things, those outside issues, those outside, those outside poisons seep into our collective and seep into our communities. And it's just another way to divide us as a community. It's something that we need to discuss. It's something that we have to talk about. It's something that we need to definitely overcome in order for us to be a harmonious collective. The wisdom card. I got a wisdom card. This is number 10 for the major arcana. And for those who are listening, is literally a wizard holding a staff and a lantern. He's standing near a cave, and there are fireflies all around him. Okay, and what this card is basically saying that we are here to collectively use our inner wisdom, use spiritual wisdom. We are to use our wisdom to get out of the situation that we are in. We are to think of smarter, innovative ways to not only come together, but to basically use each other's wisdom, use our wisdom and use it collectively in order for us to overcome what we're going through politically. Instead of using knowledge to determine who is smarter than whom, which tactic to use, which tactic is better, because that causes all this infighting. Use wisdom to steer ahead. For those who don't know academic language, such as misogynoir or heteronormative, how can they learn that language if they so choose to use it? For those who want to work with their hands, what can they do to work with their hands? What can they do to build? What can they do to use their trade knowledge to better the community? For those who are more spiritual, what can they do to uplift the community? How can they use Reiki? How can they use telepathy? How can they use tarot? How can they use their knowledge? How can they use their knowledge pertaining to herbology? Because there are folks who don't adhere to modern medicine, but they use the holistic approach, and use a lot of home remedies that have been proven to work. What can they do for the community in that aspect, in that respect? For those who are content creators, what can they do to spread the word pertaining to, what's going on in the trans community? What's going on? How can we get together? How can we, collectively come together politically? What conversations do we need to have? For those in the social work community, what can you do? What wisdom do you have? What resources, what access to resources do you have to better the community? This is using wisdom, collective wisdom, using people's strengths to work together, using the strength of the people to work together, not against one another, not letting outside issues such as passing privilege poison the community to the point where we become more divisive, or we're looking down at each other to determine who's real and who's not. True scum true scum people are those who believe in that. They're part of their mentality is to not be tolerated. That needs to be washed away. Trans men, people, their stuff. Not everyone can. They have to come to the realization that not everyone can be on testosterone or estrogen. And people are trans regardless of their choice to medically transition or to physically transition. There's a lot of folks who cannot afford it. There's a lot of folks who do not have access to the resources, which is why collectively we are to put our knowledge together. We are to come to conclusions that would, and realizations that would better the community. In order for the community to build itself up, a lot of the things that brought it down or keep it down are to go. And in order to do that, wisdom is to be used collectively. Collective wisdom is to be employed. One more card. I got two more. I have the abundance card upside down. And so there's a young woman holding, she's sitting on the ground. She's surrounded by a dragon, and she's surrounded by resources such as fruit and water. But this card is upside down. A lot of us are not tapping into the resources, the inner resources that we have. A lot of us are not tapping into our resources in general. And the reason why this is happening is because they're being, of course, they're being held from us by our government and by our, whether it be the federal or the state. Okay, but we're also withholding from ourselves, and from each other. And when I think of abundance, I don't necessarily think of money or tangible resources. I'm talking about human emotion. I'm talking about compassion, patience, unconditional love, acceptance, not tolerance, acceptance, because there's a difference between one and the other. We're not holding ourselves accountable as far as how we treat other people, how we treat people within the trans community. We're not holding ourselves accountable. There's a lot of stuff going on as far as how we're treating one another. We're not having conversations that need to be had. We're not making decisions that need to be made. We're letting outside issues, such as rumors and gossip, tear up our community. We're letting toxic people get away with things they should not be getting away with. Within our community, these people exist, and we're letting their toxicity get the best of us. We are to deem that unacceptable if we are to move on and we are to move forward to better things. In order for us to come together as a collective, we have to be aware. We are to be aware, not have to, but we are to be aware. But there are toxic people in our community that need to be held accountable. And we can hold those people accountable without tearing each other apart, without shutting each other down. That's why we are to use inner wisdom to come up with solutions, to know how to handle those type of situations. So even if there is some sort of conflict within the community, is not enough to rip us in half, because that's what the enemy wants. That's what the right wingers want, the conservatives want. That's what people who don't understand what it's like to live our lives, that's what they're looking for. They're looking for, not that that matters, but they are looking for an excuse to keep stuff away from us. That's what I'm trying to get at. Because the toxic people, don't get me wrong, hurt people do hurt people. But there are many instances where those people are not attempting to change, or they're using their resources against people to cover up whoever they are on the inside of whatever's going on behind closed doors. They're using their identity, they're using their platform, they're using all this stuff that they have to tear down the community. And people are looking at that and using that as a reason to tear us down further, and this is not okay. So what that abundance card upside down is saying is that, one, we are to hold toxic people accountable, but we are to do that without tearing each other down, and we are to express unconditional love, patience, acceptance towards one another, without hurting ourselves and not putting ourselves in harm's way, in order for us to move forward and be that collective, that strong collective that we are meant to be. Last card is the Three of Water. In this card, a woman is upside down. So a woman is, she is, has her arm wrapped up in some sort of strap, and there's three fish, and three is a really good number because it's the trilogy. It's the trilogy. Okay, it's a trilogy number. Everything's coming around. Everything's coming around. You have these choices now. Okay, three is a very strong number, but this card is upside down. What this card is saying is that a lot of y'all still think that you're tied down. A lot of you are being tied down by the drama and the discord that's going on in the community. A lot of you are allowing yourself to be bamboozled by depression, anxiety, or drama that's going on outside of you. No one you're not tied down. Do not allow yourself to be tied down by things and people and situations, people, places, and situations that you cannot change. Do not be tied down by those people, places, or situations. Because there are certain people, places, and situations that they're going to have to change on their own accord. They're going to have to change on their own. All you can do, what I'm getting is all you can do is spread love and light to those people. And that's about it. You don't have to invite them to your house for potato salad. You don't have to invite them to your house to watch a movie. You don't have to have them in your space. You don't have to do that at all. But what I am getting is that you're allowed to walk away without feeling as if you're throwing them out. But technically, you can't throw anyone away. You're just walking away from them. It's okay to take care of yourself. It's okay to walk away from toxicity. But don't let it be to the point where you're isolating yourself from the collective, or feel as if the collective is after you, or you feel as if you cannot trust anybody. Because I know what that's like. What that card is saying is like, don't allow yourself to be tied down to the point where you're isolating, or to the point where you feel as if you're controlled by your circumstances. You're not controlled by your circumstances. You can choose. You can choose to live your life accordingly, to live your life in freedom, to live your life without regret, to live your life in freedom. You're not restrained. You're not restrained. And I think a lot of people in our community, in the trans and queer community, there's this isolatory type of mentality that a lot of us have. No one understands us. No one cares about us. There's a lot of drama. I'm going to stay by myself. And what that card is saying is that you're letting those outside circumstances dictate what type of life you're going to have, what type of experience you're going to have, and don't let that be possible. Do not let that be possible. Do not let that be don't let it get to the point where you feel that in order for you to get some sort of peace, or to stay in a place of peace, you are to isolate yourself from people. Not everybody in the community is toxic. Not everyone in the community is problematic. Not everyone in the community is trying to tear the community down with a lot of division or division in general. There are people in this world or in our community, the trans and queer community, that actually want or working towards the community thriving. They're working towards that. Okay. And not every leader in the community is a wolf in sheep's clothing. Not everyone is out for themselves. There are people out there in our community that want to see a strong spiritual and political collective. So be a part of that collective. And that's one of the reasons why I feel that having a strong relationship with spirit, a strong connection with spirit and your spirit guides is extremely important, because then you can do a spiritual background check. You can, especially if you're an empath, you can determine whether or not there are folks in the community that are worth dealing with versus those who are not, because they can hide from everyone else. They cannot hide from spirit. They can't hide from your intuition. So if your intuition is strong, you'll be able to determine whether or not certain people within the community are worth dealing with. That's why meditation is so important, because the more you meditate, the more strength you will gather to have that connection with spirit. So that whole spread was basically saying that, look, we can be a strong collective. We can be a strong collective, and we are meant to be a strong political front, the trans and queer community. But in order for us to do that, we are to have discussions around the things that keep us divided. We are to have a conversation around those issues that were not invented by us, were not initiated by us or invented. They weren't introduced to the world by us. It was the other way around. And we are to not push people away because they're a certain way. Use your collective wisdom and use your collective talents and your collective knowledge. And you're not to isolate ourselves from each other, because how can we love and uplift one another if we're isolating ourselves from one another because of the toxicity and toxic people that are within the community? And to use your intuition, and to use not only your intuition but your connection with spirit to determine whether or not certain people are worth dealing with. Because unfortunately, not everyone in the community is safe. Not everyone in the community is worth having a strong connection with. A friend of mine basically came up with this concept of levels. Some people are on level 5. Some people are on level 4. Some people are at level 1, and level 1's best friend, ride or die, raw digger type of friendship, where it's thick and thin, rain, shine, snow, sleet type of relationship. Okay. It's okay to have levels, is what I'm saying. So that is the general spirit reading, spirit message rather. And it looks like we are out of time. So that's the end of our show, basically. So thank you so much for tuning in. I really appreciate it. If anything I said resonated with you, please, please, please say so in the comments. Say so in the comments. And also push that the subscribe button so you can get all kinds of readings just like this. And if you are wanting a more in-depth reading, hit me up in the comments, or you can reach me by emailing me, bowtiepsychic and I'm sorry, bowtiepsychic@gmail.com. Sorry. Also, if you are interested in the audio version, go to Anchor. And I'm also on Spotify and Pocket Cast. So, and I think if I'm not mistaken, you can just like click on the icons on the banner, the art banner, the channel art banner, and you'll be able to basically listen to Pocket Cast, um, Anchor, and Spotify, or listen to podcasts on those three channels rather. Um, Again, I am very excited about Anchor and what's in store. My dream is to be on, all kinds of podcast channels. So it'll be another way for me to get my messages out. And also, if you want to support the channel as well, or support the podcast, there's a way on Anchor that you can do that. So every little bit helps. It will help me, get a new laptop, get more equipment, so the videos will be more of a high quality. Also, I am wanting to get a transcriber, so the content will be available for the deaf and hard of hearing. So every little bit counts. So if you are able to donate or give to the channel, by all means, click on the Anchor icon and you'll be able to do that. And I will be able to do my thing. Also, I am going to be having a guest next week. Her name is Anna Gibson. She is a occult archaeologist. And yeah, I think archaeologist. Um, yes, she's a occult archaeologist, and she is really dope. And she will be on the show to talk about how her studies of the occult impact her spiritually. So I'm looking very forward to listening to her and then bringing her onto the show and so on and so forth. And it's going to be dope. So on that note, Merry Christmas or Happy Holidays. And I will see you next week. Um, if I don't, yeah, if I don't see you next week, I'll see you the next week. It'll be New Year. So, again, happy holidays. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I really appreciate you. Peace.